Going. Okay, sit yourself on your lift and then come into a good cross-legged position. Just have a little wriggle about. Hold onto your knees, lift up into the chest, elevating the heart area upwards, drawing the shoulders down away from your ears. Look down at the floor, look at something that's not moving. And listen to the sound of the breath as it enters and as it exits. Just focusing on long, slow, deep, deliberate inhalations. Breathing from the bottom of the lungs to the top. And long, slow, deep, deliberate exhalations. Breathing from the top of the lungs to the bottom. So this week we have been just focusing on some of the fundamentals of the standing poses, the turning of the thighs especially, the impact on the feet, and the ability to maintain the focus on the breath throughout the practice. So today we'll try and put all of those things together. Just release your hands, bring your hands into Namaste, press the palms firmly together, lengthen from the armpits into the elbows into the heels of the hands, the heels of the hands into the fingertips. And then consciously with an exhalation, allow your eyes to gently close. Just focusing on the sound of your breath as it enters and as it exits. Working with focus on the inhalation, drawing in energy from the environment around you. Feeding the brain with energy, feeding every cell of the body with energy to perform their role optimally. As long as there is no heart conditions or blood pressure issues at the top of the in-breath, you can hold the breath. If there are blood pressure or heart conditions, then just continue to breathe normally. Just hold the breath. Otherwise, just for a moment or two, just a couple of seconds, just to allow the body to absorb the oxygen or the prana within the lungs. Never over holding or over labouring the breath. Just observe how the out breath is slightly different after a retention. And then with an out breath, draw your chin down to meet your chest. Just spend a moment to seek to generate a genuine, heartfelt sense of gratitude for something or someone or somewhere. Hold on to that feeling of abundance in the heart area as you release the backs of the hands down toward your knees. Backs of the palms on the knees, palms facing upwards. And then as you raise your head, allow your eyes to softly open and the focus to softly come back. Just hold onto your knees, lift up into your chest, elevating your heart area up towards the ceiling. Just take a deep inhalation and then turn to the right side, drawing your abdomen across your ribs and your shoulders, listening to the sound of the breath. Using your out breath to intensify the turn, keeping your attention on the breath and on the physical sensations of the pose. And then come back to the center, hold onto your knees, lift up into the heart area, take a deep inhalation in through the nose, and then turn with an exhalation, just observing the physical sensations of the pose, maintaining your focus on the breath, lifting the heart area to give you more space to turn. And then come back to the center. Just come off your lift and sit back on your heels, big toes together, your knees apart. And then just consciously press the shin bones into the shin skin so that the thigh muscles react. Lift the heart area up to the ceiling and then hinge at the hips, keeping the front chest lifted as you come forward. So as you come forward, I want you to bring your head onto a block so you don't go all the way down straight away. So on the high end of the block to start off with, and then bring your forehead down onto the block. Press the area between the eyebrows into the block. Keep sitting back on the heels and stretching the arms away. But the block is there to assist the lift of the chest. So lift the heart area towards the head. Pressing the forehead on the block helps to quieten the brain. Maintain the focus of the breath. Filling the lungs evenly from the bottom to the top. If you can bring the block down a lower level. Again, pressing the forehead into the block. Stretching the arms away. Lengthening the armpit region. Stretching out the muscles of the back. Listening to the breath. Come up onto your knees. Move the block out of the way. Have your little fingers on the edge of the mat. Stretch the thumbs towards each other. Turn the palms. Turn the toes under, and then come up into dog down. So once you're up, bend your knees acutely. Tilt the seat bones and the tailbone up to the ceiling, and then push the toes into the floor. Hit the shins away from the feet. Push the fronts of the knees through to the backs of the knees, the fronts of the thighs through to the backs of the thighs, turning the fronts of the thighs inwards, maintaining focus on the breath. So no longer retaining the breath, just normal inhalations, normal exhalations, if you were still retaining it. Just let the head hang down. So focusing on filling the lungs from the bottom to the top and emptying them from the top to the bottom, all the while maintaining focus on the action of the legs, the action of the spine, the action of the arms, keeping the heart area lifted. And then step your feet forwards, come up into a standing position. And then bring your feet as wide apart as the mat. Have a couple of blocks for your hands. So line the edge of your feet with the edge of the mat so that your big toes are turning inwards. Just listen to the sound of the breath. Charge up the legs tight. Turn the inner edge of the feet towards each other. Have the outer edge of the feet in line with the edge of the mat. Tighten the kneecaps. Turn the thighs inwards. But notice what happens to the feet when you turn the thighs inwards. Maybe the insteps drop. So then push the inner knees away from each other and up towards the groin, helping you to lift up into the abdomen. Raise your arms up to the ceiling. Continue to focus on the breath. And then hinge at the hips, come forwards, hinging at the hips, keeping the back straight, keeping the chest lifted, keeping the head lifted. And then bring your hands underneath the shoulders, fingers on the blocks. Just listen to the breath. Really activating your legs. Lifting. The more you turn the thighs inwards, the more you can lift up the seat bones, the more you can project forwards in the chin and the chest. So straighten the legs, tighten the kneecaps, press the fronts of the thighs through to the backs of the thighs. And then pick up the sternum bone, bring the sternum bone towards the chin. That's it. So you start to concave in the shoulder blade region. If you can go down any lower, then do. But if you lose that access of the shoulder blades, if you lose the access of the legs, then just stay on a higher lift. If you can reach down to the floor, then do. Keeping the abdomen a separate entity to the legs. So trying to separate them away from each other. And then just reach around the backs of your heels. Lengthening the front body and then drawing the body through the legs. And then come back to Uttanasana, lengthening the chin and the chest away. And then bring your hands into your hips, bend your knees on the way up if you need to, and then come up into Tadasana, lifting up into the chest. So maintaining focus on your breath, maintaining focus on the turning of the legs. So the legs turn inwards, the thighs turn inwards, so that you can tuck the tailbone in without pushing the legs forwards. Lift up into the chest, tighten the kneecaps. Just focusing on the movement of the breath. Bring your arms out nice and wide in towards the chest, and then step or jump your feet nice and wide apart, stretching out the arms. Turn the left toes in, the right leg and foot all the way out. So if you remember, when the chest is upright and facing forwards, we turn the legs outwards. Take a good deep inhalation, and on the exhalation, come down into trikonasana, looking up, turning the abdomen and the chest up to face the ceiling. Breathing in through the nose and out through the nose, filling the lungs from the bottom to the top. Just look down at your foot. Make sure that your head is in line with the foot, that you can squeeze the front leg buttock bone in, accessing the back leg. Come back to the centre. Swap the feet around, turn the right toes in. Left leg and foot all the way out, keeping the hips facing the front, turning the thighs all the way out. And then come over to the other side. Observe that when you work with a focus on the breath, the bones feel lighter. The whole pose begins to feel lighter. Come back to the centre, bring the feet parallel, and then step or jump your feet back together. Come back into Tadasana. Just breathe even deep inhalations and exhalations. So get a block on either side of the back of the mat, just somewhere you're not going to jump on it, but somewhere you can reach for parsvakonasana. So when you're ready, just come back into Tadasana. Lift up into the chest, inflating both lungs evenly. Bring your arms out nice and wide in towards your chest, and then step or jump your feet. Go wider than for trikonasana if you can. With your arms outstretched if you can, lifting up into the chest. Turn the left toes in and the right leg and foot all the way out. And again, turn those thighs outwards. So consciously turn the thighs outwards, keeping the chest looking to the front. Keep the back leg straight, bend the front knee, find a right angle, just passing through Bhardvajasana 2. And then reach down, find the outside edge of the foot. You can keep the left hand on your hip for a moment. So if you can find the floor, if you can't find the floor, then use the block. In fact, let's all just use the block today because it gives you more space for your breath. So really turn, push the knee into the arm into the knee, rotate the abdomen up to the ceiling. Keep that back leg straight, reach up and over. So it's a straight line between the arm and the leg. I went out of ceiling height a little here. Pushing the knee into the arm into the knee. Keeping that back leg straight, keeping the thigh turning outwards so that you keep the outside edge of that foot on the floor. Keep the breath consistent and deep. Looking underneath the armpit, up to the ceiling. And then come back to the center, just swap the feet around, turn the right toes in, the left leg and foot all the way out. Keeping the right leg straight this time, bending that left knee, and then reach down, take hold of the block with your hands, turn the chest to face the ceiling, and then reach over. Just focusing on the breath, filling the lungs from the bottom to the top. So bend that knee a little more, Andrew, if you can, so that that front hip just comes in line with the chest. And then come back to the center, bring the feet parallel. And then step or jump your feet back together. And then just come into Tadasana. Just breathing evenly, just observe. Maybe that pose makes the heart beat a little faster, pushing us closer to the aerobic zone. Just using Tadasana to recover. Just feel the energy of the legs and of the hips The energy of the chest lengthening into the arms, into the fingertips. And then release. Come down onto your knees and have your hands shoulder width apart. Have your feet hip width apart. Step yourself back a little. And then come back up into dog down. Activating the legs by turning those thighs inwards, hitting the fronts of the thighs through to the backs of the thighs, tightening the kneecaps, hitting the shins, fronts of the shins through to the calves, turning the fronts of the shins inwards a little so that the heels start to separate. Maintaining focus on the breath, breathing from the bottom of the lungs to the top. And then gently come down onto your knees, sit back on your heels, and then lift up into the chest. Just observe the energy that you have released through your practice so far. That open, intense sensation of lightness on the inside. Okay, and then just sit back, sit directly on the floor, or if you know that you struggle to lift the chest when your legs are stretched out on the floor, then sit on a folded blanket or on some blocks. Just sit with your feet out in front, and then have a belt where you can reach it, and have some blocks where you can reach them. So just roll over and move the buttock flesh out to the side, and then press the front edge see if you can roll onto the front edge of the seat bones. If you struggle with that, then sit on a lift, because you need to, if you find that you kind of just collapse onto the back edge of the seat bones, it's always going to be really hard to lift the chest. So see if you can roll onto the front tip of the seat bones, and then have the feet together, big toes together. The heels might be separated. So turn the thighs inwards, turn the shins inwards, and then bring your hands to the sides of the hips. So just observe initially whether or not you find it stable on the front edge of the seat bones, or whether you're really trying to kind of roll off the edge of the front edge of the seat bones. This morning, I can feel that I'm kind of struggling a little to stay on the front edge of the seat bones. So I'm going to sit on a blanket. In fact, everyone, after sitting directly on the floor, try sitting on a blanket, because it makes a difference, and it's actually really useful to see the difference that it does actually make. So just sit on a blanket after sitting on the floor, and then again just roll the backs of the thighs all the way out, and then just come into dandasana, rolling onto the front edge of the seat bones. So just work to drive the thighs into the floor, drive the fronts of the knees through to the backs of the knees, drive the shins into the floor. All the time, turning the fronts of the legs inwards, lifting up into the chest, and then raise your arms up. Just breathing, even deep inhalations, keeping the legs really firmly activated and lifting, rolling onto the front edge of the seat bones and lifting up into the chest. Dandasana. Just listening to the breath. So it's actually quite a lot of effort, isn't it, to maintain the position on the front edge of the seat bones, to lift the chest, to activate the legs. Just breathe evenly into both lungs and out of both lungs. And then release your arms. And then just reset with the arms down at the sides, extending into the legs. So it's surprising how much effort sitting makes, doesn't it? Lift up into the chest. Just get yourself a belt and throw the belt around your feet. So one of the difficulties in dandasana, just as a pose, is to keep the legs activated, to keep the chest lifted, to keep the arms lifted. But one of the problems is that often the feet, the little toe side of the foot and the big toe side of the foot aren't level. And often the little toe side of the foot is closer to the body than the little toe side of the foot. So that's a case of turning the thighs inwards so that you can have the mounds of the feet in line with each other. But if you use the belt around the ball joint of the feet, then that becomes an easier fix. And when the mounds of the feet are level and in line, then the legs are naturally turning inwards and it becomes a little easier to lift up into the chest. So holding the belt like you're kind of riding a horse. Elevate the heart area up to the ceiling, keeping the legs really firmly activated. Breathing evenly and deeply. Try not to death grip the belt. Just hold on with the big toe, with the thumb and the index finger, lifting up into the chest. So we can go into paschimottanasana. We'll use the belt just to keep the chest lifted, just to stay on the front edge of the seat bones. If you've got a bad back, just stay at this stage, just working to lift the chest. Otherwise, just a little bit at a time, inching the hands towards the feet, lifting up into the heart area each time. So we're not trying to drop the head at any stage. We're just trying to come forwards just a little bit at a time. If you're protecting your abdomen, maybe just stay at that first stage. If you can reach around the feet, then find the feet, lift up into the chest. So as you come forwards, it can become kind of tight on the abdomen. So bring the feet a little bit wider apart if it starts to become tight on the abdomen. So if you bring the feet at least hip width apart, then it gives you a little more space. Keep the legs activated. Breathing even deep inhalations, lifting the heart area, pushing the shins into the floor. If you can reach around the feet, then do. Listening to the breath. Okay, and then just gently Come back to the center, just observe the quietness that comes over the brain when you come out of a forward bend. And then just bring the legs into svanasana for a moment, hold onto the knee. Lift up into the chest, draw your chin forwards, bring the chin down to meet the chest. Jalandhara Bandha. And then raise the anal sphincter up towards the diaphragm region. Mula Bandha. And then just focus on filling the lungs evenly from the bottom to the top. And then emptying the lungs from the top to the bottom. Just allowing the in-breath to overflow from the top of the lungs into the arms, into the chest, into the legs. And then release Mula Bandha, release Jalandhara Bandha, and then raise your head and allow your eyes to softly open. Good. Just sit yourself on a couple of blocks. So you have a block, and you can even put the blanket on top. But just give yourself that initial lift. So just stretch your legs out to the side, and then have the belt where you can reach it. Bring the feet apart. So we're going to do Bhardvajasana 1. So get hold of the back of the right knee and then bend that right knee and bring the foot underneath the left leg so that you can see the instep of that right foot on the outside of the left thigh. So the instep is kind of, you can see halfway across the foot and the knees are still relatively together. And then bend up. So if that, Ian, if this is too strong for your knees, you can just stay in dog down. Not dog down, sorry. You can stay in just normal cross legs, and it's a turning pose. So you can just turn in. You can do parsvakonasana. So this front knee is in line with the left knee. Bend the left leg, and then bring that leg into viparita, and let the shin sit in the instep of the other foot. And then bring these two knees together. So at this stage, you probably feel really uneven at the hips. So this left hip probably feels much higher than the right hip. So just turn that thigh of the left hip from the inner to the outer, and then just lift up, draw the buttock flesh out to the side on that right side. Now that might not, depending on how high you're sitting, that might still feel a little uneven. So just get a blanket, and then just wedge the right buttock bone on top of the blanket, and so that hopefully should kind of resolve any unevenness. You don't want there to be unevenness in the hips for this, because otherwise, because it's a turn and it will feel unpleasant in your back. So the knees are close, they're in line with the hips in front of you, they're in line with each other in front of you. And then lift up into the chest. Raise up with the left arm reaching up to the ceiling. Turn all the way around behind you with your right hand and draw the abdomen across, the ribs across, and then bring that left hand down onto that right knee and turn. Try not to roll over onto that right seat bone. Try and adjust the torso so that it's directly between the two hips. Lift up into the chest and turn. It's a really nice spinal twist, isn't it? Drawing the abdomen across, the ribs across, and then come back to the center. And then just come up onto your knees, move the blanket out of the way, and then stretch your legs out in front. And then just bring the feet apart. And then this time bring the left knee in first. Just bring that hip, that knee in line with the hip, so that the two knees are still in line with each other. And so you can see the instep of the foot on the outside of the right thigh. And then bend the right leg into viparita, toes pointing back, the shin sits in the instep, and then just adjust the position of the seat bones. If you feel really uneven, then put a folded blanket underneath the left buttock bone, so that the right buttock bone is kind of floating in the air a little, but so that the hips feel level. So sit as high as you can on that left buttock bone if you can. So lift up into the chest. So give yourself a bit more of a lift underneath this left buttock bone. It looks like you're kind of like that a little bit. So just see if you can give yourself a bit more of a lift. Reach up with the right hand, reach behind with the left, dig the left hand into the floor, turn the abdomen, and then reach over, find the outside of the thigh, lift up into the heart area. Just adjust the position of the torso so that it's directly between the two hips. Using the out breath to turn. Lifting up into the chest and turning. And then gently come back to the center. Just remove the lift and stretch your legs out in front. And then lift up into the chest. Just resetting in dandasana. Just observing the openness around the abdomen. Okay, and then just come down onto your back. Have a blanket for underneath your head, and we're just going to raise the legs up for viparita, karanhi briefly, and then we'll relax in sirvasana. So come down onto your back. If you're wearing glasses, just take them off for the reclining poses. Hold onto the sides of the mat at the sides of the hips, bend your knees, and then raise your legs up. Just listening to the sound of the breath. Turning the crease of the elbows out to face the sides of the room. Listening to the breath. And then just bend your knees, bring your feet onto the floor. And then just stretch your legs out along the mat. Just come up onto your elbows. Make sure that you're in a really good straight line right down the center of your mat. And then just allow yourself to release into the floor. Unhooking the arm and the leg muscles so that you allow the body to become heavy on the floor. And out of that heaviness comes a feeling of positive, clean energy radiating out from the bones and to the muscles and into the organs. Into the flesh and into the skin. Using the in-breath and the out-breath to distribute that feeling of lightness down into the tips of the toes, into the tips of the fingers, and up into the top of the head. And then when you're ready, just gently wiggle your toes, wiggle your fingers, bringing yourself back into this pose of shavasana. And then draw your knees in towards your chest. Just have a little rock from side to side, from top to bottom, just a gentle massage on the spine. And then roll over onto your right side. Just stay down for a breath or two. And then straighten out the top leg, come back up into a seated position, just a final cross legs with your hands in the masti. Just a final spinal lift. Drawing your breath in through your nose and out through your nose. Be conscious of the energy that you have released through your practice by drawing your energy of the breath into the abdomen. And then draw your chin down to meet your chest. Spend a moment to seek to acknowledge the positive energy you have created inside, and then to send some of that positive energy out into the world. And then when you're ready, release the backs of your hands down towards your knees, palms facing upwards. And as you raise your head, allow your eyes to softly open and focus to softly come back. Thank you very much. So hopefully you feel as though you've really lifted your energy and given yourself good positive energy to put into your day. So thank you very much for joining me.